Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Kiko's Freethinkers Forum. Episode 107 is here, and we're joined by a very special guest, not an exaggeration. He's a repeat guest. 3 times he's going to be on the show now. His name is Jay Clark, and he is a Illinois native. He currently resides in Chicagoland. He's a graduate in communications at Olivet Nazarene University, which is located in Bourbonnais, Illinois, outside of Kankakee. And we previously discussed information on 7 and 21. Episodes 7 and 21 are noteworthy because we talk a lot about the hip hop industry. And that's also something we're going to talk about today. Hip hop industry, kind of assessing that, with Ye and Diddy kind of been at the center of that conversation to a certain extent. But we're going to branch off into other conversation as well. I know this is going to be exciting for my audience. And he's also an Excel car owner. Estelle is a car rental group based in Illinois as well. And they're in plans of expansion right now, as we were talking off air. But I just want to say, Jay, my audience, to me and you, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And we can't wait to have the conversation with you.
Most definitely, Kiko. Thank you for having me once again. I know our conversations are always interesting. They can go a lot of different directions. So I'm looking forward to it for sure.
That's definitely not an understatement. And I tell my audience that Jay has been very crucial in this process because he was actually the first person to invite me to a podcast. So this started about 4 years ago, and I give Jay credit for it. So if you want to blame someone for hearing my mouth all the time, you got to blame Jay Clark because he got me into the podcasting, and that I've really enjoyed being on his show. The Black Voice is what it was called originally, the Black Voice, and then it went into a couple of changes. But I appreciated those experiences. We had some fun times, great conversations, and it's always great to have someone kind of return the favor. Now he's on my show, which is wonderful to see. Just a slight ad, 42% of our audience is located outside of the United States. So we have quite an international audience. I think today will be a great experience for them to get into the world of hip hop and understand that world. Because my dad came on previously on episode 100, being a DJ. People kind of got the view of the world through the eyes of a DJ, kind of R&B music, what that means to people in our communities. It's a generational thing. I grew up listening to certain types of music that a lot of non-Black people really didn't understand, or they weren't exposed to that type of music, because when my dad was a DJ, music was still very much segregated by the industry, especially the Billboard charts had its own charts for Black artists versus white artists. But today we're going to kind of see that transition and maybe reassess the state of music and the hip hop industry in general. I think Jay is going to be a great person for this because you offer a different perspective. You know, you're in your late 20s, right?
Yeah, I'm not 30 yet, not quite yet.
And I'm 41
I'll be
years old.
29 this year.
Even with us, we have there's a distance as far as generational, experiences when we talk about music, even not. So I'd love to get your perspective. Let's get started because we got about an hour or so of discussion. I know we got places to go today. We previously talked about Kanye West and that controversy with Adidas. We're going to revisit that in a second. But I want to get your overall, what is your assessment of hip hop as we know it today in 2024? What does hip hop mean to you in 2024? And do you think that hip hop had the same meaning when it started?
To answer that last question, I don't think so. I think hip hop is kind of in no man's land. A lot of people don't know what direction it's going in. There's artists speaking out, old and new, about how much the streaming services are paying. There's a lot of redundancy in the content, and one positive, I feel like hip hop is moving away from what people refer to as drill rap, just overly vulgar, F that in, kill that, this type of stuff. And I think a lot of hip hop or rap is moving away from that. So I think that's a positive, but I think also the industry as a whole is in a little bit of no man's land. There's not really a next best artist. I don't think no one has taken the throne in that, which is big in hip hop. Typically, in a given period of time, whether that's a single year, a decade, a period of time, there is kind of that lead artist that sets the standard for the whole industry. I don't think anything like that has emerged. And I go back to an interview J. Cole did a couple of years ago where he said, I can't remember if it was 50 years or 100 years, but he was saying that there won't be any celebrities at that point in time. And I think hip hop is a unique representation of what he meant by that, because there's so many artists. Like, you can, I'm from a smaller town like Kankakee. You can blow up as a hip hop artist or a rap artist within that circle. But then there's a larger market 50 miles north of Chicago. You can also blow up in that inner market. Now, you can blow up in Kankakee, you can reach Chicago, but you may never reach an audience outside of that. So then you got guys who move from, say, Kankakee to Los Angeles, and they develop a really strong following in Los Angeles, but they never tap back into Chicago. So naturally, this has happened very recently. Naturally, they may want to come back and do a show in, say, Chicago, but their audience is based in Kankakee. So now they're trying to get the Kankakee folks to travel to Chicago. They never really curated that audience. There's so many pockets of, people that listen to music at this point, even within the United States. It's hard to emerge as like a big artist. And I don't know. I think hip hop is always, from my perspective, the industry, and then rap is the true art form. I'm always consistent in saying that. So even as a true rapper, a true artist, it's hard to emerge if you're not, doing something a little extra or putting yourself on the scene in some kind of way, especially on the female rap side. We won't get into that, but you usually got to do something outlandish to really get put on the forefront. And I think that's one of the things that makes hip hop a difficult industry to emerge in and evaluate. It's really difficult to see what's actually considered talent versus what's just popular.
You made an interesting comment there. See, when I was growing up, it was still what we know is hip hop was very much localized still in a certain geographic area. When I was growing up, hip hop was still very new. It was still associated with New York and the East Coast, even before the West Coast blew up in the late 80s and the early 90s. And it was always that hip hop, the b-boying, the b-girling, all that stuff was still a part of it. Like those groups like Houdini from New York City, the Eric B. and Rakims that were the more, okay, rap is more emphasized now, when before it was more about the sonics of it. The Beastie Boys, the sound, that Rick Rubin sound, that Russell Simmons sound, the Def Jam sound with LL Cool J radio. But you see those transitions, and that's kind of where I grew up. But then I also got into the era where the Naughty by Natures grew up, and you saw the talent of Tretch, just that rap style, and that influenced a whole nother generation of people like Eminem and that crowd, the Busta Rhymes crowd. You have all these different styles that changed over time, but hip hop was very much. I think that was more of an emphasis on rap, was just a small subcomponent of it. It wasn't just like you said that. You said rap is the art. You seem to suggest that rap is like the integral part of it now, versus back then hip hop was like. I don't want to say that there's not a hip hop culture now, but it seemed like hip hop culture was more emphasized, the graffiti and stuff. You don't hear those components emphasized as much now, but that was the essence of it, right?
Yeah, and I think hip hop is just, to me, is simply the business side of it. It's like the industry. You can be an outstanding rapper, you can be the best rapper, the best lyricist. You can go toe to toe with anyone in a freestyle. But if you don't have any business sense, if you don't have, in some cases, a talent agent or a manager, even a label to push you, for example, that knows the hip hop industry, you can't necessarily emerge. It takes it takes business savvy and marketing savvy to emerge in hip hop. You can't just be talented anymore. Like it just, unless you get a lucky break, unless you go on, you know, the Netflix show, the Rap Game, and you beat out the other contestants. But even so, you have to have a sense of, you have some business sense and some marketing prowess to even get in that space. You can't just, you know, fill out an application. You still have to go through certain channels to get there. So I mean, as a rap artist, that's one thing. But if you want to be successful in the business of hip hop, you gotta to study the business of hip hop. And to kind of go along what we're talking about, when I hear of an artist, emerging artist, or someone tells me about an artist, if this is the first time I'm hearing an artist and I like them, the first question I ask myself for the person that tells me is, where are they from? Because that gives me a lot of information immediately as far as what type of content they're putting out. Is it real or is it fraud? How did they emerge? Are they from a big city? Are they from LA, New York, or Atlanta? Okay, that's no shocker. Are they from Idaho? This is really interesting. Are they from Denver? Are they from Detroit? Like, it's just knowing where they're from tells me a lot about what could and should be in their content, how they could have emerged, why they emerged, a lot of different stuff. So geographically changes a lot of the landscape in rap or hip hop, in my opinion.
I just think it was interesting revisiting the conversation I had with my dad. Is just even in R&B music back then, and again, what we know is hip hop was very new. In the 80s, it was still growing. I mean, it's very, very new. We're talking about the Sugar Hill Gang and all those groups from New York City, like that whole scene from the 70s, like Curtis Blow in the 70s. That's kind of like the beginnings of it. But a lot of the artists back then who were big in, I guess we'll call it rap for the lack of a better word, whoever was associated with rap music were still not known to most of the country because rap back then hadn't grown yet. But you keep emphasizing the hip hop industry, which I totally agree, it is an industry. So my question goes to, what does that mean about underground artists? Because even the people who would have been known in our communities back then in rap would have been way less known to people outside of our communities. But now there's more access to commercialized music. So everyone knows the commercial artist. It's not even a matter of them being black or anything anymore, or what genre necessarily. It's simply, I guess, the industry, once those songs are out there in the public on the top 40 channels, it's technically rap, but people know who they are. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. Back in the day, a rap song struggled to get in the top 40 unless it was just like a big, big hit. But a lot of quote unquote hits in our community that were rap based songs weren't necessarily popular songs across the country. They were only big in certain areas. So I think that's a big difference too between what we're talking about now, where people pretty much know the figureheads of hip hop now.
Yeah, and I cannot think of is it Russ? I can't think of the rapper that literally from jump he pretty much went his own direction. I want to say it's Russ. I can't call it, but artists today have a choice to chase fame or chase money in a way. Like they can make that decision from the jump, because if you really just want the notoriety, you're going to go straight to the hip hop industry and you're going to try to get signed by a label. You're going to do certain auditions and tryouts and all of this different stuff, like going on a Netflix. And you're just going to do what you can to be seen, in other words. But there's artists like, I don't want to misspeak. I know he's from LA for sure. I know he's from LA and he has a bit of a cult following. So he went like the Discord route where he's selling most of his music directly to consumer, because he's built his fan base from the community approach. Like the people that are listening to his music have been listening to his music for a decade now.
And what's
But they're going, I'm Googling. It's either Joey Badass or Russ. I can't call it exactly.
So is this a pretty big artist?
Yeah, and he's made a name for himself, but you don't see him as much on, award shows and Grammys and different type of mainstream platforms, we should say. But he has a really strong core following that has been attached to him since day one, day two, day three, and he can sell his music direct to consumer. So there's actually legislation, I believe, being passed or put up for debate, whatever have it, that artists are getting paid too little on the streaming side. And I wrote that down before we started. I know they're getting paid, I think it's 300ths of a cent per stream, 0.003, that 300ths of a cent per stream. So like if you do the math, someone listens to your album, say it's a 10-track album 100 times over, you get about $3 for that. You have a 10-track album, someone listens to it. My math may be completely wrong, but roughly, somebody listens to the whole album 100 times, you're getting about $3 for that. That's insane. So there's a big debate. I hear it mostly coming from the hip hop industry, maybe because they're the most vocal. I can't call it, but there's a big pushback on these streaming platforms that they're not paying enough. And I believe the legislation is pushing for a 1 cent per stream, which is a huge difference between 300ths of a cent. We're talking 0.003 turn into 0.01, which 1 cent is, it doesn't sound like a lot, but hell, that's a heck of a lot more than what it is now. And these streaming platforms, of course, they're raking in Apple Music, Tidal, Spotify. These are some of the biggest emerging powerhouses, platforms to get your word out, all that. So they're literally, I'm gonna say controlling the media space, but they got a hell of a big part in it. Consider just Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, and YouTube. Those four platforms alone, how many hours of content people are consuming on those on a daily basis. So like if you can push and get straight to those platforms, great. If you can go to a label and inflate your streams, great. But there's also a way that artists can start from the bottom and curate their audience. And some of these artists at this point, they don't even need those platforms, because if you're selling your album direct to consumer for say $10, $20, some of these artists are charging $50, $100 because they can, and their audience will buy it. So if you can sell your project for $100 up front versus taking 0.003 cents per stream, who's really winning? Who's really winning? So you can get the fame on one side and get your streams. You may have 10 million streams, but I sold 100,000 copies of this album at $10 a piece. I got my bread up front, so definitely a lot of different ways you can emerge, and not even emerge. I don't want to use that word, because you can be successful in rap, in hip hop now, without necessarily emerging to the mainstream. That makes sense.
Very true. I was going to ask that artist that you mentioned, how would you compare them to? You said they're from LA.
Yes.
How would you
LA,
compare them on a scale to artists like Kendrick Lamar, Vince Staples, Tyler the Creator? Are
Ooh,
are
Vince
they
Staples.
on that level? Like, what tier would they be on? Would they be even below those people I mentioned? Or it's
As
like
far as
knowledge?
talent, yeah, as far as talent is arguably head to head. And shout out Vince Staples. He got that new show on Netflix too. He's one of the just dopest creators, I think. Him, Childish Gambino, I put them in like
Oh
a Kanye
yes.
West type of category, like because they're bigger than the rap itself. They take rap is just a creative expression for them, but they can put that same creative expression into film, into
And the other stuff.
clothing, into yeah. So I think that's really dope. But as far as comparing an artist, I'm like 80% sure it's Russ. I got him on my screen right now, and I did like some quick Google search. I'm like 80% sure it's Russ. But an artist like him, he may well be as talented as a J. Cole, as a Kendrick, even as a Drake, but he's not going to have the mass fan base and mass mainstream galore as those type of artists, because that's not his goal. His goal was really just to put out, I'm speaking for him, but I'm assuming his goal was just to put out his art form, not necessarily looking for the fame, not necessarily looking for the dollar. It's just like, I have this gift, I'm going to put it out. People who want to attach to it are going to attach to it. And I don't know if this was his end strategy, but how it turned out, now he can sell pancakes to his audience and they'll buy it. Like, if Russ opens a pancake shop in LA, it'll probably do really well. Like, this is your local, I hate to use this rate, this is your local drug dealer. He's selling, J. Cole reference, but this is your local drug dealer. He's selling dope over the airwaves, right? But now he comes back to this community and creates a business. People are going to support it. So if Russ makes a restaurant in LA versus a drug dealer makes a restaurant in LA, they're going to get equal support at the end of the day, because they built in their community and they haven't forgot about that. They're not reaching for the mainstream. They're staying at home, So it's ways to win, different ways.
As far as when you say industry, that has its implications. We talked about this in an episode. Again, I hate referring to my dad constantly, but that was a big episode. Episode 100 was kind of a celebration episode, but my dad brought it. I mean, I know he would, just with his knowledge base and just like his intelligence. But as far as the music is concerned and the content of music, because we know that things have changed as far as the content. There have been laws that have been passed to not allow certain types of opinions to be broadcast, even though, and not only that, is just simply that all the consolidation of the companies, like your radio stations, your telecommunications are all consolidated now. You're talking about a handful of companies that control what we listen to, what we watch, what we process. And I don't think people realize that every company is pretty much tied to this one. And if not that, the competitor of that major company is tied to everything else. So you really only have a few options to choose from. And the music industry is no exception. You have your big labels, and you know what the big labels are. And that's it. It's pretty much your major 3 or 6. It seems like it goes into 3s or 6s. But I was thinking about the song, The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. I think about the song, even the song like 8 Million Stories by Curtis Blow. I think about a song, Is This the Future by Fatback Band, which is an R&B funk band. I think about all types of songs that had a social content that was so strong and it was very defiant of the system. But I can't think of artists now, and maybe it's because it doesn't hit the mainstream, because the mainstream censors those voices and those content sources. Why do you think that there's validity to what I'm saying, that an artist simply can't speak to a message, a strong message, a social message, because it defies the system too much? Like, is that not allowed in the hip hop industry anymore? And how does that resemble 2024 versus back then, when people seem to be more explicit about condemning the system, whether it was we don't make money, like the government's fucking us over, or protesting a war, or protesting racism, or whatever it is. It just doesn't seem like those messages are mainstream anymore.
Yeah, and back to your point about the artists or the labels being like the same, and the companies, they likely all have the same investors as well. Like, there's only a certain amount of, like, music is a very profitable industry, but it takes big money to get to that point. So it's likely common investors as well, and you got to make everybody happy. But right now, I think that's an interesting point to stay with the times. Right now, I think TikTok is being hip hop. TikTok is being hip hop. Like, once a certain thing gets too powerful and it's spreading a message, it gets shut down. Just in the I don't want to say the system, but it's just how it is. Once things start going contrary to what should be according to what is, then things get shut down. And hip hop is the same way. Like, I think if you're an artist and you have that social message, that social content, Black Power, whatever it is, you kind of have to, as you're coming up, you have to drop those notions subtly. that's where the bars come in. You know, that's where, okay, there's an encryptic meaning behind what he just said. But once you get to a certain point, i.e., Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole with some of his singles, mostly, not on his albums, and I'm going to get to that, on most of his singles, you will see an artist kind of speak out about social issues, more challenging issues, because it doesn't have to push through the label necessarily. So I don't know how it works exactly, but a lot of those like really challenging messages, you'll see artists do and say a freestyle. They may go on a radio show to promote the album. And then that's where they drop some of those super challenging, controversial social, lines and whatnot. They may drop a single prior to the album coming out. Hey, this is who I am, but go check out the album because I gotta pay my bills. So I think that's what it comes down to. It's like you can, if you have that social message, you can have it. But if your goal is to really emerge in the mainstream, you have to, do that subtly as you come up. But once you're established, Jay-Z, you can go on stage and say certain things. Hey, my wife has been the most dominant artist in recent memory as a woman, and she hasn't gotten the recognition she deserves. You can go on stage as Kanye West and take the mic from Taylor Swift. It is what it is. Like at a certain point, what are people going to do anyway? So even in those moments, that's not Jay-Z going on stage this year, Kanye going on stage back then. Those aren't spur of the moment decisions. This is years of built up tension and frustration with the industry as it is. And now I've reached this pinnacle that I can do whatever the hell I want. That's just what it is. And they're okay losing whatever comes with that because they have enough to fall back on. And not an independent artist who's coming up who realizes what the industry is. If that's your goal, you're going to just be subtle with that stuff coming up. But I mean, and to wrap up, if you're an independent artist on the other side and this is your message, you're going to go full blow with it. And that's cool. But recognize that there's going to be glass ceilings. I'm just being completely honest. Like 5 years ago, I would have said, push through and break the wall. But just realize where you're at. You're going to have to create your own audience because the mainstream is not going to accept that. The radio is probably not going to play that. YouTube isn't going to show that to everybody. Apple Music is, when Kanye first dropped his album, even this time, you couldn't even find it on Apple. Like these platforms have a lot of power, and these are just facts, Sad but true.
I think the last time that there was a earth-shattering message like that within hip hop was the Childish Gambino "This Is America."
Ooh,
that was that I can refer to that point as, wow, this is actually a song that's blowing up that had a very impactful message. I think it was a message that was almost too. Everyone was still trying to put their own interpretation of what video meant and stuff like that, but it created this big wave of thought, in the country. And I was thinking, man, that's what I want to see in hip hop. I want to see more of that. You know what I mean? That's how it used to be, though. But the difference is that back then, it wasn't rare. Like that was a pretty consistent message. Like even groups like NWA, they had their personalities and their big names and stuff, but people are still playing "Fuck the Police," in different like rallies and stuff. I mean, that stuff was just a common thing. I mean, and people think that they cite NWA, but there are lots of groups that came out with that kind of music back then. I think Ice-T referred to it as reality rap. That's what they did. It was called reality rap. It wasn't gangster rap. That's what the media put on it. But that's basically what hip hop was back then. It was reality rap. You had your groups like Kid and Play. You had your groups that had more dance-oriented groups, but a lot of the music back then was very much socially conscious. Even Two Live Crew had socially conscious songs. Born in the USA, which was they used Bruce Springsteen's, like with his permission, he granted them permission to use that basically talking about free speech and stuff. But
Question for you. So Childish Gambino that was a smash hit. Whether the industry wanted it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The video concept, the message, absolute smash hit. But what has Childish Gambino done in music since?
I knew you were going to ask that.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
when I was saying that, I was thinking the same thing. I was saying the same thing. What happened after that?
Smash hit. Like, and now Gambino is focused mostly on the creative side as far as film, and he might have got pushed out the music, and they said, "Oh, whoa," because if this is, and that was like in a bit of peak Childish Gambino in his musical career, because he's always been on the actor side, he's always been on the film side. That wasn't his best work. That was just what he created at that time. Exactly. Now, in hindsight, that's absolutely some of his best, maybe his best piece of art ever. Like, just like musically, the video, just the concept, that was a crazy video. But why did it have to stop there? You know, I'm completely speculating because I have no, but it's like, why did it have to stop there? We could have had a whole album of that type of content. And the next album he dropped didn't even have lyrics on it, dog. It didn't even have lyrics. He dropped a whole album of instrumentals. You know, I don't know, man. Okay. And it's no, let me, and to wrap that up, if he was with a label, I don't know if he's independent or not, but if he was with a label, that could have been completely intentional. Hey, we want you to drop an album. Don't put any of that "This Is America" stuff on there. Boom, drops an album with no lyrics. Like, come on, man. Oh, man.
See, man, this gives me just so many thoughts. Wow. I'm loving this conversation. But let's go back to something before we continue. Okay, so give the audience a sense of what you grew up listening to, because we come from very different generations, but I listened to different kinds of music, even compared to people that I messed with back then. I used to listen to Latin music and all types of crazy stuff because my dad gave me a lot of influence. So I was still listening to all the soul music, James Brown, all those the Stylistics, the Delphonics, all those groups, and then just progressing into the more electro funk stuff, Nucleus, Houdini, the New York scene with the hip hop, electro, Paul Hardcastle, that kind of stuff. I listened to everything, but what did you listen to growing up as far as hip hop was concerned? I'm curious.
Well, as far as hip hop, I had a different like pathway through that. I come from I'm a PK, I'm a preacher kid, so hip hop was like a little bit frowned upon in my household. Now, my mom and dad haven't always been saved, so they know what it is. My earliest exposure to hip hop was like 106 in Park as a shorty, AJ and Free in my basement watching with my brothers, and we would look forward to the new song. What was the number one song of the day? Like 106 in Park was the show for hip hop.
That was a great show. Wonderful show.
I will watch that show. I would go on Hot New Hip Hop. That was an old site. Similar, it had like the daily rankings, a weekly rate. I would go on Hot New Hip Hop, download music. I went through my Frostwire, LimeWire stage when Soulja Boy was blowing up. I was getting every form of crank that I could find. Like, man. And then and then I can remember back in like elementary school, walking down the hall, literally reciting 50 Cent, like 21 Questions, Mini Man. So I had that stage, got into Lil Wayne. But my main artist, my favorite artist all time to this day is J. Cole. And I remember 106 in Park when J. Cole first dropped Who Dat? That was his first like hit single. I was like, oh, this is my guy. Like his flow is dope. He got a humble story, is dope. He got a similar name to me, J. Cole. I started calling myself J. Clark because of J. Cole. Like, little do people know. It was people, and I listened to J. Cole like before he blew up. So I seen that on 106 in Park. Listened to him like my freshman year of high school. By my sophomore year of high school, I'm telling everybody about J. Cole, to the point people was calling me J. Cole. Like, because they already called me J. Clark, I started calling myself that. A couple of my homie Larry, a couple of my homies was calling me J. Cole because I told so many people about him. So that's like my evolution of hip hop. You know, Kanye definitely filled that gap between like 50 Cent and J. Cole and whatnot.
You talking about like '03 to '05? That's the period. It sounds like you're talking about.
Yeah, but this is when I'm really like, this is when I'm really exposing myself to hip hop. Now I'm old enough to go get what I want. If I want to listen to this type of music, I can go find it. I got a couple of dollars. I was buying CDs on the internet, surfing the web. I remember when my brother, I was in, I want to say 6th grade, 5th grade. My brother Vince comes home. He's at the junior high school. My brother Vince comes home. He like, yo, you heard of YouTube? You heard of YouTube? You can go on there and watch anything. You can listen to any music. So we literally on the internet browser typing in like the letter U and the number 2. We typing in YOUTOO. We didn't know what YouTube was. Like when we discovered it and found out we could watch any or listen to any music we wanted. You had Yahoo Music back then with the little radio style. They played the commercials. Like, so in my exposure to hip hop, it's been a journey. But what I found is I've always like, I like lyricists, man. I don't really, the beat is cool. The beat got a slap, but I like lyricists. I do get more attached to the conscious side, the more social side. So even like outside of hip hop, I listen to gospel, I listen to neo soul, a lot of Anthony Hamilton coming up. Sam Cooke as a older, like I mean Louis Armstrong. So I can go a lot of different directions, but
Wow.
when it comes to hip hop, I'm on like the conscious side for sure.
Yeah, in that sense, I had there was kind of a cutoff. Those artists you named was kind of that was like the last time I stopped really fucking with hip hop. Like I listened to J. Cole, all the Lil Wayne, all those people I grew up listening to. And see, at that time I would have been in my 20s. And I remember just the phase where I was just anything that was out of New Orleans, I was crazy about. Any of the juvenile stuff, the BG, the Turk, all that, the Cash Money crowd. I bought every single album that I could. Yeah, I would go to Best Buy and we literally have like 20 CDs because you had a job, you didn't have any kids or anything yet, so you thought you was doing something when you went to Best Buy when you got your check, and you just buy like 10, 20 albums at a time. And I
That's a
have like
fact.
3 or 4 Spanish language albums in there. They'd be like, damn, what the fuck are you listening to, Kiko? I have like a Shakira, but her Spanish language stuff. And then I have some countries like Colombia, Costa Rica, and maybe another country. And then I have all these like New Orleans albums. They're like, dude, you're a weird ass dude. Like you listen to everything. But I've always been that guy, dude. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm playing my Spanish music on full blast. I don't give a fuck who's looking at me. I'm like, yeah, I'm playing this shit. What are you gonna do about it? And everyone they just got used to it. Like, man, this guy is his own person. But I kind of grew up listening to that scene, the Big Easy scene. But 50 Cent, you mentioned, who can forget that? And then the album that came out before, the Get Rich Die Trying, where he talked shit about Rudy Giuliani. That underground album that came out, I forgot what it was called, but that was big. And then I was introduced to 50 Cent. And then you had the Ludacris phase and Nelly phase, all those people. But who do you listen to now? And how did those artists change from the people that you just mentioned?
You know what? I'm having a similar experience that you did because it's hard for me to like take new artists seriously. Being honest, it takes a long time for me to listen to an artist. Like some of the newer artists I do listen to, like West Side Boogie. I'll throw Corday out there. I will throw Rhapsody out there. She's a woman,
Oh yeah,
female artist.
Rhapsody. Yeah, Rhapsody's awesome.
Man, I
She's
like
awesome.
Rhapsody a lot. She just dropped a freestyle actually like 2 days ago. She got an album coming out. So I always look forward to Rhapsody coming out. But it's not a lot of new rap artists, man. Like I can't top ahead, especially. It's just too saturated, man. Like I like the artists that I rock with because the content that they put out now has super depth. They're not trying to prove anything. They're really speaking from like the true artists. They've already accomplished a ton. Now it's just about like what is the best quality work I can put out, which is on my another show I do with my guys, the Keys podcast, actually, KEYZ. We talk about the Drake Kanye debate a lot. And one of my guys who's a producer, his biggest issue with Drake is he says his music has no depth pretty much. Like he will put out anything to sell, anything that's popular, any sound, any wave that comes along. This is his perspective, but Drake hops on that wave, and my perspective is he murders that wave. So the issue on his side is like, okay, Drake jumps on every wave that comes. That's his critique. My vote of confidence in Drake is that any wave that he does choose to go on, he's usually one of the best at it. So it's tough for me when people say, oh, who's your favorite artist? It is tough for me to say a Drake because I know that Drake doesn't really have a style other than conscious rap. You can give him conscious rap, but Drake will pretty much adapt to anywhere that the industry is currently and find a way to stay relevant. Versus like a Kendrick and J. Cole, I always go back to them. They're going to figuratively, they're going to lock themselves in a room and find out what comes out. They're not going to necessarily like take a bunch of outside opinions and perspectives and say, oh, what should I do to make this album good? What do the people want to hear? They're going to go from their internal creative space and just present to the world what it is. That's why some of their projects or songs some people may consider duds, because they're not what's popular. But if you hear that same track 5 years later, 10 years later, it don't got to be popular to be good music. So, those are the type of artists that I prefer. So,
have you heard of? I'm going to throw out two artists. I'm going to say you've heard of them before. Jid.
Absolutely.
And Denzel Curry. Have you heard of Denzel Curry?
I've heard of Denzel. I haven't heard his work, but JID is I have a good amount. I have a good amount of JID for sure. Good amount.
Man, you got to check out some Denzel Curry. I'm telling you. I don't listen to him as much as I used to, but he's like around 30 years old. He's out of Miami. I think he moved to LA though, because just so much stuff was going on. He was saying, with the XXX Tentacion, I think when that shit happened, he was like, if I don't leave Miami, they're gonna kill me. Like, so I have to get out of my zip code basically. So I think he moved to LA now. But yeah, Denzel Curry, Jid, I think they collaborated before. They definitely done collabs before. Shout out to those two artists. That's kind of why I cut it off. But you kind of just have to sift through stuff. I mean, a lot of the music quality I don't think is the same as it used to be. I have one more question about this before we go into Ye Song and the whole Adidas controversy. But I'm curious, do you think that the sound of music connects to the people like it used to? Do you think that the sound in the studio is just an artificial, inorganic sound that's kind of devoid of the street experience? Do you feel like back then the street experience was more in line with the sound even out from the studio? Or do you think that that's just something that I came up with? Do you see a parallel between sonically what the artist is trying to do and how that connects with the streets versus now?
I love that question. And it gives me opportunity. So I told you about one of my creative processes before we started in writing. I've also been dabbling into music. So what I've learned is through the creation process now, and I'm just talking musically, not necessarily the lyrics part. Musically, it's easier to create music now than ever. There's so many different places that you can pull sounds from. I'm talking about sounds that are already laid. These could be live sounds. These could be MIDI sounds that come from the computer. And there's so many different platforms and websites and apps that you can pull sounds from, bunch them together, and make music. So you don't have to know how to play an instrument to make music, for example. You absolutely not. Now, knowing how to play an instrument is super advantageous. Knowing music theory is extremely advantageous. I don't think you can make good music without knowing music theory. I don't think that's plausible at all. But it's like it's so easy to make music now that so many people are doing it, which takes away the true creativity of it in a way. Like, and then when it comes to the lyrics, I can't speak too much to that side because I haven't done it. But I think from what I just said, just shows you like you don't have to be as artsy or as creative to make music now. Now to make good music, you certainly have to be. To make good music, everlasting music, you certainly have to be creative still to this day. But anybody can really hop in the studio, hop on these apps and platforms, bunch some stuff together and call it music. So I believe, even though I haven't done it, I haven't done it on the lyricist side, but I believe that can be said the same, for that. There's TikTok artists, TikTok rappers, and a lot of it is parody. A lot of it is satire, but they get a lot of views and a lot of people listen and consume the content, but it's intentionally terrible music. Like, and I can't even say intentionally. Like this is their art form. So this might have came from them internally and they legitimately thought it was good music. But the ironic part is some of it is so bad, whether it's intentional or not, that it catches virality, if that's even a word. It goes viral. You know what I'm saying? Like people look at it, whether it's good, bad, however you want to grade it, people watch it because it's interesting. So to the artist, that can pay. You can be compensated for that. So it's so many different like ways to emerge now. We talk about TikTok for as long as it'll last, but you don't have to be good in music to actually to be in the space at this point. You simply don't.
I'm going to make a transition to something that we were saying before, and I think it kind of continues what we were saying, but it is a transition over into the Ye Adidas stuff. But I want to share the screen with you and my audience, and then I'm going to show you all, not this Drink Champs interview, not that yet. Where was this at? Okay, where it says Kanye West and Adidas, how Misconduct broke a lucrative partnership, the New York Times article. This interesting stuff. I just want to show you all not what's the article itself. This is October 27, 2023. I want you all to look at this picture here. Let me scroll it down. Can you see that?
Yes.
And all those figures right there, everyone can see. You pretty much know who most of those people are in that front row there. My question for you is hip hop just another marketplace? Because the hip hop that I remember didn't seem to just sell music. Like the purpose wasn't just get the numbers up. It seemed like hip hop it obviously was an industry. It had record labels, but it seemed like the content was more independent. It seems like now everyone is just an industry rat. Everyone is not just selling art, quote unquote, as far as like in the form of hip hop music. You also got people selling shoes. It's like they're marketing cologne and perfume. It's like it's not just music that they're selling. So what do you see as far as hip hop just being another marketplace now? Just looking at this image right here.
That's an outstanding point. I never thought of it that way. But that's an outstanding point. I'm for it. Of my mindset, being in the capitalistic society that we're in, go for it. I love that. And one of my biggest critiques about emerging artists, say you got a 16-year-old who claims he's the next great rapper, right? Even an 18-year-old, even a 20-year-old. What have you done? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you want to reach the masses? You want to be the best, but what have you done? Like, seriously, how can you? Kodak Black is the last artist to really do it from a young age and emerge. I wanted to mention Kodak in our last segment,
Kodak.
but I like Kodak. I like Kodak a lot, but it's like, as an 18-year-old kid, how can you hop on a mic and what hip hop is, what music is, and essentially teach? How can you relay messages, life lessons, quality thoughts at 18 years old? So a lot of the game gets misconstrued because people assume that if you're going to go into hip hop, go into music, you have to do that at a young age. A lot of the artists we see emerge and shut it down off bat are in their late 20s, early 30s. Even JID, even Jid, when he emerged, he was older. You know, Jay-Z was way older when he first started getting on the mic. So it's like, I think it takes experience to teach. It takes experience to put together these complex topics and, you know, metaphors and similes, and like it takes real work and experience and practice to really be good at something. Like, I heard something along the way, you got to do something 5 years before you even consider yourself anything, you know. And I've been doing music for just about a year, so in my mind, I have a long process. I'm even to a point where I want to share my stuff publicly, and I apply that 5-year rule to business. I apply it to, like, if I'm learning a particular topic. I'm studying marketing right now. I'm on like year 2 with that. But when it comes to music, I would give myself a decade, bro. It would take probably a full decade. I'm learning the piano, for example, for me to play in front of people, like, because you want to be in a place of certainty, confidence, trusting your ability, your creativity to do it freely. Um, and I don't think you can really get to that place without years of experience and just countless hours of practice. So yeah, I hope to answer your question, but it's like, it's hard for me to take a young emerging artist seriously, because what have you done? How can you teach? You know, so that's my 2 cents on it.
I guess this question leads to a more of an implication of the industry itself, and it does go into the content, not necessarily of based on what we've been saying, not necessarily the artistic content in the lyrics, but more so the content of the person outside of the studio. So whether it's commentary, unpopular opinions, and this goes to the Ye situation. Um, there's clearly things that are allowed in the industry and things that aren't allowed in the industry. Um, how do you assess the Kanye Ye situation right now? Like, how do you assess the whole history, the Adidas controversy, the public perception of Kanye West? What exactly did he do to cause people to feel a certain way about him? Like, what do you think just this whole saga is about in the first place?
I mean, I hate to. Let's just be blunt. This is a blunt platform. The only people, the only people in this society, and especially in hip hop, that are generally hyper monitored and hyper scrutinized are black males. That's just what it is. If you're a white male, if you're even a black female, if you're a white female, if you're an Asian male, female, you're not going to get hyper monitored and scrutinized the way a black man does. Like, we can't. I'm speaking from the society standpoint. We can't get to a point where we're too powerful. We can't get to a point where our platform is too large, that our message can be heard too clearly without something being thrown on our name. It's just, it is what it is. And hip hop being what it is, the engine that it is, music in itself being what it is, they have to, the powers that be have to limit the message to a certain extent. Now, if you are Ta-Nehisi Coates, you know, no one's going to climb into your books and say, don't put this in there, because the people that hip hop influences aren't necessarily reading books. But if they started to,
Oh,
there would be
wow.
more monitoring on that end. Like, it's the fact that hip hop is so consumed on a mass basis, and they know these artists have power. Like, if they just let Kanye run rampant and run free, he damn well he might be the president. Like, he damn well, if they just let him run free, they didn't give any pushback, they didn't throw any type of negativity on his name. Like, him and Jay-Z, if they wanted to, they could probably be president and VP, like, because they have that type of influence. But that has to be limited to a certain extent, or, you know, Armageddon in a sense. Not really, but, you know, that's what they would predict, is if these figures get too large, then the people behind them will realize what they can do, and that's not beneficial for the greater good. So
It seems like
I want to emphasize that point though. Black men, the hyper monitoring and the hyper scrutinization is it don't happen to nobody else.
even and I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I'm not defending sexual predators or anything, but even the stuff with Diddy, R. Kelly, Bill Cosby,
Man,
what it seems like why come there's not a surviving? It seems like there's always black men that are the one under the microscope. And
yes.
but I guess my issue is somebody else is facilitating that process, right? It's not just and I think that's the disturbing thing about P. Diddy, is he's obviously doing things allegedly. I'm going to use that in air quotes because I'm not trying to get taken down YouTube. But
Hey.
is it who else is behind P. Diddy, for instance? Who is behind R. Kelly? Because it's just like the Weinstein stuff. Um, all these people know each other, man, which is absolutely insane. It's like when you get to a certain level in the industry, you meet everyone that's attached to the industry. Like what we were saying before, these people aren't strangers to each other. Like those that I just showed at that Yeezy fashion show, for instance. Everyone is so connected in the industry. So when something comes out about Diddy and the sexual allegations and stuff, for instance, how is it that these things they come out all of a sudden? There has to be something going on way back when, but the story doesn't seem to come out. Why is it that the story comes out so much later?
That's all facts. And I think it goes back to what we just said. It's super sad. It used to be a lot more frustrating to me. But I think I have an understanding of what it is. Like it's one of those things you can't really combat. And the black male is typically the fall guy. 100 people can do the same heinous thing, and it'll get talked about. But if a black man does it, it's going to be haywire. Imagine a I hate to even, this is a tough subject to talk about, but imagine a black male kid being the active shooter at a school. Like, oh my goodness. Oh, like SWAT would be there in an instant. The military would probably pull up to his house even after the fact. They would search like, if that was a black kid doing what oh my goodness, all hell would break loose. That kid would be plastered internationally. You would see pictures of that kid in Russia. Like, this happened in America. This is the kid that did it. It would be everywhere is my point. So,
I guess
it's a
I
sad
guess that's
reality.
what I was getting at. Like, is it becoming? Is it just simply? Is it another trope? Because it's almost like in the media where it's like the missing white person, like the missing white woman, for instance, is always used as a trope. And it seems like every 3 months or so, there's always a missing white woman story or a missing white kid story that's thrown within the news cycle. I almost feel like this is the same thing where it Russell Simmons even not. I mean, he's got all these allegations against him. It seems like I'm not protecting these people. It's just simply it's a storyline that develops. It seems like over time, each time, whether it's like every 2 years or so, there's always a big hip hop figure that gets attached to these sexual allegations. I mean, even Nelly, I believe, at one point was, he was alleged of doing something. And I'm just like, is it just part of that news cycle too, to where they know that it's automatically going to be consumed because of who's attached to the story?
Man, I think there's validity to it. There's 3 artists that came up that go along with this conversation. When we were talking about who do we listen to, 3 artists that came up, not because I listened to them heavily. Well, these first 2 I did, and we all did. P. Diddy and R. Kelly, everybody was, come on. They had the industry on lock for their own period of time. So P. Diddy and R. Kelly both came up to go along with that. But also Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez came
Oh
up because
yeah,
Tory Lanez I listened to Tory. I had the same the same attachment I had to J. Cole when he first came out and I discovered him was very similar to Tory Lanez. Anytime Tory Lanez dropped something when he first emerged, I was all over it, bro. Like Tory Lanez has a dope sound, and he can do the R&B side very well. He can do the hip hop side very well, and he can rap very well. I'm separating those intentionally, but you're right. It's like every so often, it's like there has to be a fall guy of sorts. Now, in just society, all of these things could be true. There's shitty people out there. So, they're on the forefront. They did something heinous or shitty. It got exposed. That's one thing, but it just gets odd, like you said, when there's a seam rhythm to it. Like, oh, there hasn't been anything in hip hop for a couple years. Let's make a story. Like, whether it's a rap beef that comes out, you're right. There's always something negative, if I may say, that comes from the hip hop industry. Damn near on a yearly basis. Like this is the inaugural hip hop scandal. Like you don't hear that from the other industry. You don't hear that in R&B. You don't hear that in pop. You don't hear that in country music. Hip hop every year has a scandal. That is a fact. Damn near every year.
Okay, I'm going to share this again with y'all. Go back to episode 21 to really go into this discussion that Jay Clark and I had about the Ye situation. I want y'all to see where the mainstream media or just media in general, how this is collaborated. Now, I don't know this person, Amy, but Amy Lamare published this article. Keep in mind the date, December 6, 2021. The Business of Business is the publication. This is pre-Adidas controversy, remember? The dark history behind Adidas, how a bitter feud between Nazis built the world's #2 athletic brand. Could you imagine that title being published right now, just after all the stuff we've discussed? Could you imagine that title with someone actually using the word Nazis in the title in this censorship age? Could you imagine that article being written that way right now? This is only 3 years ago, people.
I'm a victim to it too, because when I seen the word Nazis, my eyes got big. So I mean, imagine if I was hysterical. So,
but see, oh my goodness, 3 years ago, which is crazy. But it just goes to show you the context. You can't find an article, and I dare anyone after this interview is over to go on Google and find a negative article about Adidas after this published one right here, the one I'm showing you. Go try to find a negative Adidas article after 2022. See if you can find one or not. I guarantee you won't be able to find one. You know why? I don't know. I have my reasons. I think that's what Kanye was getting at. But I think he has a terrible delivery at times. Because like even in some of the interviews I've watched with Ye and the point he's trying to make about the Jewish media and stuff, he seems like he's all over the place. And I don't know if that's intentionally all over the place. I'm not going to say anything about his mental psyche because that's what people are trying to do to him. He's not quote unquote crazy like people are saying. There's obviously some kind of a calculation involved, but I'm just trying to wonder if you're getting a message across, like why would you? I guess people just have to have knowledge going into what he's trying to speak to. And maybe that's the hard part because the language he's using is very much, a lot of people don't even know Kanye because of his music. They know him because of the comments that people said that he supposedly made about other people. They don't even know anything about Kanye.
That's a fact.
But it's just like, what do you think that is, like, that's going on?
I think that's an interesting point in alone. You saying that not a lot of people know Kanye for his music. So the music fans are seeing him in these lights, and we're like, we still think about college dropout. We used to think about graduation. We like, this is the same man who made this. This is the same man who made Jesus Walks. Like, he's not who y'all think he is. But if I had never heard a single Kanye West song, and all I know about him is this is the man that came on stage and took the mic from Taylor Swift. This is the man that's on the internet yelling at everybody, calling the Jews this and that. I very well would have a different perspective of Brother Ye. I did miss your question though.
It was more of a comment. I was just thinking about the history of Adidas and just kind of the hypocrisy of how all the attention was put on Ye, but none of the attention was put on Adidas.
Oh man.
Because Adidas now apparently the original Dazzler family don't have any ties to Adidas now. But notice this, Adidas. Adidas comes from one of the brothers who founded Adidas. His name was Adolf Dazzler, but his nickname was Addy. So notice here, ADI, Addy Dazzler is his last name, the Dazzler brothers. So you mean to tell me they were concerned about him making anti-Semitic comments, but yet you're going to keep a guy who was a Nazi Party member, and not only a Nazi Party member, but also Adolf and Rudolph, his brother, who founded Puma, because they never got along. So Puma's also an apparel company. He founded Puma, Rudolph did. They were both tied heavy in the Nazi Party. Actually, they were so heavy in the Nazi Party that the shoe headquarters they were using in Germany, they ended up making shoes for the U.S. soldiers that were fighting against the Nazis. So they would trick the Allied forces into getting them to buy their shoes from them, even during the war in Germany, during World War II. This is crazy. People think I'm crazy that I'm bringing this information out. I'm just showing the hypocrisy of it. If you're concerned about Kanye making comments, but the company that has his name after the Nazi who founded the company, you ain't thought about changing the name of the company. Everybody else is changing names of their company, but you're worried about an image problem, but yet they're not worried about changing their name on the company. Do you find that that's interesting?
Hell yeah. And I have a ton to say about that. Because if you really look at it, I'm an infant financier. With the businesses, I move a lot of capital around on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. So I've studied some of this stuff. If you look at the origins of, speaking of the origins of Adidas, if you look at the origins of a lot of these U.S. companies, bro, you're going to be floored. Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, any company that's big in chocolate, where they getting the
Deutsche
cocoa
Bank is
from?
another Nazi Party origin. Deutsche Bank.
Man, and think about, okay, you got the Nazi Party origins, but I'm going to the transatlantic slave trade origins.
Oh yeah,
These
yeah.
banks were like, think it, if you got an issue with Brother Ye is saying, look at your bank, and if you have a small local bank, look at the bank that started your bank, look at the bank that owned your bank, and you tell me if you have an issue with who they were originally. Like, we're not that far removed, guys. I'm just not that far removed. We got a lot of technology, a lot of advancement, but slavery wasn't even 200 years ago, bro. Like, this is what it is. That's not a long time. It's just simply not.
Do you know who they end up giving the money to? Apparently, because I think Adidas is making money off of the Yeezys line still, and apparently they gave so much money to anti groups that fight anti-Semitism and racism. Do you know what groups they're talking about? Jay, you can't make this shit up.
I hope it's not.
ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which is what? A lot of people will argue that it's a Zionist organization. I mean, it's a Jewish American based advocacy group. So it almost is going to Kanye's point. The money that's been funded from this place is going to the same group that's used to promote a certain ideology. And that's what
Some big
Zionism
companies
is to
have
me.
nonprofits.
That's what Zionism is. And it's not, it's simply pointing out the fact that separation of church and state doesn't exist. That's a clear breach of separation of church and state. Like I was telling Brittany Jones, who's the presidential candidate running in this election, APAC is technically a religious organization, but it's a lobby too. American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So all these groups like the Anti-Defamation League and stuff, are they private groups really? They are, but they aren't because they clearly have a relationship with the government. the Southern Poverty Law Center, all these watchdog groups. It's interesting because they all share pretty much the same ideology, and somehow, um, when you speak to that fact, you get labeled something. When you speak to the ideological basis of these groups. I'm not saying that these people are bad people. I'm simply saying that everyone has an agenda, and I guess when you point out that that group has an agenda, that can lead to issues. But I think Kanye, I think his colorful way of describing things is where he got in trouble. But a lot of the stuff of what he's saying, I understand what he's saying. He's trying to point to something, but it's almost like, is he doing that almost exaggeratedly on purpose? Is he doing that? Or do you think he's just being himself? Because it seems like to me, he's calculating a character almost when he makes these comments about Jews, for instance.
Well, I think it. I think if it was calculated, it worked. That's what a lot of people were speculating was when he came out. Oh, what hell? I will be honest. I think I said it on this platform. I was worried about his safety. You come out speaking like that against those guys, I was worried about his legitimate safety. Those are the type of folks that will make you disappear and smile in your face. They will make you disappear and shake your mother's hand and say, sorry for your loss. That is what it is. So the fact that he did what he did, which I'm not surprised at this at all. He did what he did. He came back on the scene. He had 2-3 Super Bowl commercials. He sold all his gear for the low on his website. He broke his own record in sales in a given 24 hours, 48 hours. He dropped the album. It was instantly #1 on the charts to the point that it got suppressed and taken off. Now, there was the speculation, no one really knows if he did that himself, if Kanye took it off himself, or if the platforms, took it off. But his album instantly shot to #1 post Super Bowl. And it was seemingly taken off the platforms at that point. It's recently been put back on. Now you can stream it freely or whatever, have it. But there was a period of time where even his #1 album was taken off of Apple Music. So I think it worked, whatever it was.
I know we got to go, but I want to make one last point, and maybe I can get you to chime in before we go. And Jay, this has been wonderful. I got to have you back on sooner for sure, because we still got a lot to talk about. This may be controversial on this platform, but I'm going to go on and say it as it is. I see Kanye almost. I've reassessed our interviews that we discussed 7 and 21, especially episode 21, and I urge my audience to go back and watch episode 21 and any of the articles that we've discussed, any of the musicians that we discussed. Look into those musicians, great musicians. I almost compare Kanye to Trump in the sense that they're both, to me, I can't take them either one. I take them serious only to a very certain extent. I think they're very limited because how can you be against the system when you're a part of the system? And I know that they have different groups and come up as, but at some point you're so connected with everyone else that you're trying to take down or whatever entity you're trying to shed light on as far as like doing things that they shouldn't be doing. What is Hollywood and the sex scandals and everything else, or whether it's Israel and the Israel lobby exploiting people in the media and not allowing people to say certain things, whatever message you're trying to promote or sell and bring attention to, those people are also still tied to the industries that they're a part of. So how serious can we take a person like Kanye when they clearly still have a lot of power? Like, it's not like he's powerless, you know what I mean? If this was anybody else in Kanye's position, they wouldn't be able to do what he's able to do. Sure, they took his money, a little bit of it from him, but he's also able to recuperate it because of who he is. Do you think that that's true to that, or like what exactly do you see in my comparison?
Yeah, and I would say to answer that in short, with a grain of salt, take it with a grain of salt, because my recent critique of Kanye, and I'll publicly critique him because this is a public platform and this is music. But even the content on his last album, the album that went #1, the song that is blowing up the charts right now is Carnival. And even the content on there is like it's hypersexual. So it's like you went on a whole rampage about how the industry is hypersexual, and then the number one song on your album is hypersexual, and the album cover is hypersexual, and the promotion of the album was hypersexual. So it's like, hell yeah, I got questions now. So what is the real intent? And my only speculation, being optimistic, is that this Vultures 2 that's coming will be completely different. And this album was just the album to put out to sell, to show the world. And I'm projecting and speculating, but this album that he just put out was to show the world I can still succeed in that light. And then he comes back with Vultures 2 and it's completely different. And it's like, okay, this is where I am now. That's the only optimistic outlook I can have on the situation, because I do think that the content on the album was a little more heinous than what I was expecting. Like, it's a lot, you know. So I definitely critique Kanye on that. It's like, okay, you put out the mantra of being a Christian and a follower of God, and you want to clean up the hip hop industry. This is what you put out. This is the mantra you put out, and then you serve the industry in the same light. Now that album is number one on the hip hop charts. That song is number one, I believe, on all charts, on all music charts. Carnival. Well, what are we getting at here? So, what's my question for Ye is, what's next? You know, what now? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, that's so much that we can still talk about with this, because it goes into other. We didn't even talk about like humiliation rituals, anything like that.
Oh man,
I'm
it's been a
really
big one
curious to
lately.
get. There's just so much stuff going on right now. We can't even wrap our heads around it. And just once your eyes see it, that's it. You know, you can't unsee it. But I want to give you a final second, a final minute or so to speak to my audience. And as far as if you have any last words, and again, I can't thank you enough for coming back onto the show for a third time, and we can't wait to have you back on for a fourth time.
For sure. Thank you for having me again. And what's on my heart right now, my words is just create relentlessly. I left my job now 3 years ago. Insane, like 3 years and 2 months. Like, I'm almost emotional thinking about it, because I remember walking out the door like I ain't know what was next. I got to the crib and realized I had to start making my own money. So in this current phase of my life, I'm in a struggle phase. Like, I'm in a period where I've racked up a lot of responsibility, a lot of obligations, and I have to deliver at this point. And it hasn't been the easiest. But what I've been consciously focusing on in this period is my creative output during my struggle season has to be worthwhile. That's the only, like, the creativity that comes from this season has to be worthwhile. Whether that's curating my businesses and making sure that they're on par, whether that's putting out, written content, whether that's putting out music, whether that's doing things like being on this platform and just sharing freely. Um, my life is not all together right now. I have 3 kids, I have 2 businesses, I have a nonprofit that I want to curate. I'm still attempting to put out other forms of creativity, on a weekly, monthly basis, daily basis, whatever have it. But that's something that I'm just extremely focused on in this period, is to not get down. Like, I've had a great life. I had 2 parents. I went to college. I played college sports. I had a kid at a relatively young age where I'm still healthy and able to be there for them, which is all good. But everyone has to have a period of struggle. Like, it's not all sweet out here. It's just not. So I would leave with that. Just create relentlessly. There's a brighter side. You know what I'm saying? Just keep going.
And yes, do you have any active platforms that you would like me to link into the episode description?
Yeah, I'm still on a YouTube channel. J Clark Real. They search that. J Clark. I changed that. J Clark Live, actually. J Clark Live. That's just like my permanent name, I guess. I got away from the J Clark Real because I don't know. I just like the spelling. Just the creator in me. I didn't like the spelling of it, but I want to get better at putting out content, especially after our conversation on off platform. I just got a editing block, man. I gotta get these videos out. So if they check me out there, I should be getting some more content out there soon.
Okay, I'll make sure that I confirm that with you afterwards as far as what to put into the episode description. And I also put the Excel rental group as well in the episode description. I think I did that previously in episodes 7 and 21. But we just want to say thank you again for coming on to the show. Tell your friends and family to subscribe to Kiko's Freethinkers Forum for free. We really are going to grow. I'm trying to get 20,000 subs by the end of 2024. That's our personal goal here at the forum. I believe we can do it. We've been doing a lot of content lately. This is episode 107. I can't believe it's 107 because we started talking episode 7, which is 100 episodes ago. I mean, who can make that up? And now it's 100 episodes later, and we're still talking. But beautiful people, enjoy the rest of your day. We have some great guests coming up. Jack Rasmus, economist, going to discuss are we going to experience another depression in our lifetime? We're going to have that discussion on Thursday. We're joined by Norman Finkelstein on Friday. He's possibly one of the most important political scientists in history. We're going to discuss his latest book. Jill Stein, Green Party presidential candidate. You all probably know Jill Stein from the 2016 election. She's going to be on the show this coming Monday. We just have a lot of people. Zach the Mad Redneck is coming back onto the show to talk about labor in the South. We just have a lot of guests coming down. Amira Bahia is coming onto the show to discuss the Wayfair child trafficking scandal that happened back in the day. Just a lot of people. We got more politicians, more activists, everyone. You never know who's going to come onto the show. But regardless, subscribe to us for free. And remember, you can't unthink free thought. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Cheers.